fewest parts, so to speak, regardless of personal happiness. Today's women over 40 are rewriting the rules, and they are living longer, healthier lives than any generation before them. And the idea of spending another 20, 30, or even 40 years in an unfulfilling partnership is simply no longer acceptable. We do have to recognize that when marriage was originally generated or enforced in our country well over 100 years ago, the lifespan of individuals wasn't much past 60 years old. So we also recognize, in matter of fact, depending on how far back you go in American history, even before the war, life expectancies wasn't always much past 50, 55 years old. So special shout out to Al for the first one. I greatly appreciate you. He said great divorce, so divorce over 50. Yes. So when we think about the fact that back in the day, because you got to remember when um, in the old days, when the average life expectancy was much lower, you would work for 20 years, you'd retire and have 10 to 15 years of retirement. You used to get pensions and everything like that that would pay for your standard of living until you died. But you would basically start at like 16 or 18 or whatever. And then that 20 years, you would be like 35, 40, right? And then you retire and you only got like 10 or 15 more years left and then you're dead, which is like 50, 55, 60, right? That's it, right? So you married at 20 or 21 and then you go to like a 20-year marriage is 40. You only got like 10 or 15 years left. 50-year marriages back then was like something to behold, which usually happened from a childhood friend. He says, before which war? You're splitting hairs, Michael. Pick a war. Pick a war. Because when you think about World War One that happened at the establishment of the United States, and then you think about the Civil War that happened in the 50s, you think about before the Civil War, when life expectancy was not 85 years old. And you think about before World War One, when life expectancy was not 65 years old, the life expectancy was much lower. So when somebody was arranged into a marriage, that marriage wasn't a 75-year marriage. Right now, a 17-year-old could be married to the same person for 60 years because life expectancy is a lot longer. People are prolonging getting into marriage and spending more time focusing on their desires and then looking towards marriage in their 30s and 40s, recognizing that they still have 40 years left of marriage with the current life expectancy. And marriages aren't lasting 10 and 20 years anymore if they last 5 or 10. So your first marriage might happen at 35 and your third marriage might happen at 50. You got to think about this. The life, almost like the ideology of being a vampire, the life expectancy being longer, you have lower expectations, or in some situations, higher expectations. And the desire to walk out is a whole lot more fluid. But you have to realize, though, the women aren't just ending marriages, they are consciously choosing to chase a different kind of future, one defined by their own happiness, not necessarily the happiness of their partner or the happiness of the unified group. And this shift comes from a perfect storm of economic, social, and psychological forces that have reshaped what uh, a woman wants and what she needs, and most importantly, what she's able to do. Perhaps the single biggest factor driving this trend is the rise of female financial independence. Alpha says, first marriage is overaging 3 to 5 years. Yes, sir. There goes the math. When you find a person right now that has a 40 or 50-year marriage, in 2025, that marriage would have been established in late 80s, early 90s, probably further back than that, as a matter of fact, where they're not that type of behavior doesn't happen anymore. Way back in the day when courtship occurred, way back in the day when you asked the parents for their blessing, way back in the day when the parents were involved in aiding in the maintenance of the relationship, way back in the day when society aided in the nurturing of the marriage. We're not in that society no more. We do not ask for permission. We do not ask for a blessing. We just invite people to the wedding if they want to come. We do what we want to do. We don't care what anybody else has to say about it. We don't ask for advice on how to behave better. We ask for advice on how to get what we want out of the deal. And if we cannot get what we want out of the deal, most feminist pro movements are go girl, walk out on them, run away from the situation, not fix it. Men are always telling other men, get in there and fix it. Men are telling other men, get in there and work with them. Women are telling other women, you don't need him, girl. You can do this all by yourself. But you got married so you didn't have to do it by yourself. But in order for you not to do it by yourself, the ability to compromise with your partner and seek your partner's happiness on an equal platform of seeking your own happiness is clearly important. And that's something that has fallen short in the feminine model. For centuries, marriage was, for many women, an economic necessity. Back in those days when they used to get married because they either were taken care of by their fathers or they were taken care of by their husbands. That was back before women's liberation. Now, women have the equal right to work, and that allows them to abandon every responsibility that they have because they've got a job too. So now they don't have to be a good wife. They don't have to be a good partner. They don't have to be a good homemaker because they have a job. So, that kind of leaves a void in the relationship because the family is not being widely taken care of. The masculine role is required to be followed by the man. He doesn't have a choice in that. He's devalued if he doesn't. And then the feminine role is not followed by the woman because her feminine role is to be masculine because they can be fluid. Men cannot. Men cannot shift back and forth between feminism because they start having their masculinity challenged. So the man must be masculine, and then the man must allow the woman to be masculine, and nobody in a relationship is feminine, and the feminine requirements are not being fulfilled. And an issue that requires negotiation between the parties. Because even in an egalitarian expectation, where I've promoted the uniformity of alternating, where one of you lead and the other one follow, and then reverse, but that still requires those women to at least accept part of the time to follow instructions and follow the leader or partner. If not, the relationship is going to falter because one person, regardless of if it's man or a woman, cannot have their way 100% of the time. The relationship's not going to work because the person who never gets what they want, who never gets what they desire, who never gets a say, is going to feel undervalued and unappreciated and unworthy. And then they're going to want to leave that relationship and find somebody who's going to respect their opinion and their ability to make decisive decisions. It is what it is. Michael says that marriage would be founded on mutual trust and supporting each other. So, in personal growth and joint ventures, that's true. But we're not in, and that's going to make marriage more transactional because we're not looking at simply women becoming a dependent of the men. A joint adventure or joint venture is going to be her investing in the same relationship that the man is investing in. So they both have something to lose if the relationship fails. In modern times, with women comparing their ability to contribute to the man's ability to contribute, and then on top of that, the women leverage their body's abilities to give birth and all of the stuff that they do for the man sexually as an excuse to say that they're putting more on the table than what the man is doing while the man has got all the responsibility, the value and worth of effort is off kilter, which also leads for extra demands simply because she's allowing the man to sleep with her and allowing the children to be born when they don't decide on abortion. And that poses a huger problem because the relationship is not respected on an equal platform. A woman doesn't bring more to the table in a relationship than a man. But when you start gauging things on an equal footing and then subtracting the value of the man's effort simply because the woman can reproduce, you're really causing an unnecessary problem and your expectations are flawed. Because his responsibility, once you have the child, his responsibility is to take care of that child too. So now he has two people to pay for, two people to protect. He has to change his decision making to make sure that it benefits you and the kid. Women don't have to take care of the children. They choose to take care of the children. Women who choose to stay at home and nurture the children, because you don't have to do it. You can get a babysitter, you can get a nanny. Rich people do it all the time. Rich people drop kids almost as much as people on Section 8. But the difference is that the rich people will have a nanny, in-home teacher, in-home trainers to watch the kids and look after the kids while the adults are off making millions, where they probably have a stronger bond with their caretaker at the house than what they have with their birth parents. So women don't have to be there. They choose to be there. So we've got to look at what does woman have to lose in a relationship when the divorce occurs? Because the man loses everything. He loses the kids because the society hasn't changed yet. We're still from old fashioned ways where courts put the children with the women. Only 18% of men get the children. The other 82% fight for the children until the children are grown. So the women get the children just because they're women, not because they're good at what they do. The men fit the bill. The men lose out on the family. The men lose out on the house, the cars, all the money, all the effort, all of the money that the man spent from the first date all the way to the divorce, and then half of his estate, child support, and alimony. So a lot of the times men stay in a relationship specifically because of everything he's going to lose if the divorce occurs. Women, what does she lose? The guy. That's it. Which she can replace that guy with another guy because she can still get paid from the first husband and get most of the stuff from the first husband and have a new guy that is contributing to her in addition to that, which ultimately makes the divorce a financial benefit for her. Motivations. Michael said all relationships has its ups and downs. Learning to deal with them. Yeah, that's one of those virtues that are learned is knowing how to deal with them. Michael says exceptions are always failed. No regulations equals more divorce plus low marriage rates. You're right. The laws that were designed back in the day when women didn't have jobs is exploited by modern women specifically because the higher income earner is usually the one, no gender established, usually the one that's going to be required to pay alimony and child support. Women typically date up. So if she's got a $50,000 a year job, she'd prefer a man with a 60 or $75,000 a year job. She would consider that man on her level. Now, if they divorce because he's making 15 or $20,000 a year more than her, the court would likely make him pay her child support and alimony. And then after they divide all of the assets, and Michael pick it up in an estate sale, the women would get out of the divorce more than what they put into the marriage. Um, However, in modern times, because more women are becoming self-sufficient and more women are contributing, well, more women are contributing into the economy where they're becoming more alpha boss ladies. When those higher earner women that are making over 100, 200,000 a year are marrying men that are making less money than her, when those women get a divorce, the man gets the alimony and the man gets the child support because the law is clear that the higher earner pays the lower earners standard of living when the lower earner cannot sustain the standard of living after the divorce. So we've got to think about how that impacts people. Michael says, "I'm sorry, I thought we were trying to create a good marriage on how to tear a marriage apart." Well, I, in order for you to create a good marriage, Michael, the first thing you have to understand is what is causing the marriage to fall apart in the first place. In order for you to be able to build on a positive foundation, you have to know what causes the foundation to crack. Um, In order for you to build sturdy and stable walls, you have to be able to identify what makes the walls weak in the first place. In order for you to have a solid roof, you have to know what a weak roof looks like. So what we have to do is we have to first address the problem. What is causing all of these divorces? Then we have to see if we can navigate to a solution. So when we recognize leaving a marriage, no matter how unhappy, is going to mean facing not just social stigma, but very real threats to poverty in the past were some of the reasons why women back in the day didn't seek divorce as often as women in modern times. Today, the landscape has been radically transformed. A significant portion of women over 40 now have the education, career experience, and financial resources to support themselves. So, this economic empowerment isn't just a safety net, it's a launch pad. But let's be clear, this decision comes at a steep cost because studies show that after a divorce, women's standard of living can fall by as much as 45% compared to a 21% decline for men. A woman's household income drops by roughly twice as much as a man's. So the question isn't just about being able to leave, it's about being willing to leave despite a greater financial loss. This reality makes their choice even more profound. When a woman isn't financially dependent, she looks at her marriage through a lens of fulfillment, not survival. The old trade off, her happiness for his financial support, is off the table. This allows her to ask a critical question. If I don't need this marriage for money and I'm willing to accept the financial hit, what am I getting from it? Because again, the value of men in the lives of society and the women in this society is what the man provides financially more than emotionally to the engagement. Michael says, give me the solution first. Negative thoughts always shut me down, especially when the first thing out their mouth is negative. Well, Michael, we'll get to the solution because you do understand that one of the first things that we have to wrap around how to resolve the situation is positive communication. We also have to understand that it requires the women who are abandoning the relationships to put a little bit more time towards respecting and valuing their men. It also requires the women to have a more rational and logical level of expectations that recognizing the man that they chose and what he's capable of versus what he's willing to do is more important than what she's expecting him to do. Because whether or not he wants to do it, can he do it, is going to be a very defining factor in if he does it. And whether or not he can do it versus whether or not he wants to do it is another scenario. A man might want to give a woman trips around the world, but the man can't afford to take her to dinner twice a month. A man might be capable of taking a woman around the world on a regular basis, but don't want to take her anywhere because of her bad attitude. So when we start talking about the ways to fix this, we need to talk about what needs to be fixed. You don't bring your car to the mechanic shop and tell the mechanic, "Here's the money, fix the problem." You bring the car to the mechanic and you ask the mechanic, "What's wrong?" so that I can decide what gets fixed. You don't call a repair person to come to your house and find something to fix, right? No. You have a problem that needs to be fixed. You evaluate your household, you determine what needs to be fixed, and then you call the right specialist to come down and satisfy the desire to fix what is broken. So as much as you want the solution first, Michael, you have to figure out what the core problem is so that you can establish what an effective solution could be. Now, for a growing number of women, the honest answer is that they're not getting enough in their relationships. Either she better put her feet back on the ground. Well, if they get their head out of the clouds, more often than not, they're likely to see a lot more positive results out of their relationships. The fact that women leave despite often having more loss financially is most telling statistics of all, and a powerful testament to their deep seated dissatisfaction. For many women, the discussion to divorce is the direct result of decades of burnout. It's a consequence of working what sociologist Arlene Hochschild called the second shift. We talked about this on the show before in detail. The unpaid labor of household chores and childcare that falls disproportionately on women. Specifically, the fact that women have decided to be earners, which is their right from liberation to be earners, and have shunned being homemakers, which uh, I guess egalitarian and equality does fit the ability to not be required to be uh, homemakers. The problem is that they're not negotiating in their relationships how they're going to adjust to the new requirement of being the homemaker when children are in the mix. Michael says, any women here? Oh yeah, there's a lot of women popping in and out. The ones that don't like what I have to say are going to leave quicker than the ones that agree. But there's about 35% of women that watch the show. They don't always comment when they're not trying to shame me for my statistical analysis. I would love for them to be able to chime in, but it uh, it is hard to look at a conversation and then evaluate your own behavior and recognize that you may have at some point in your life performed in this fashion, negatively contributing to the failure in your own relationships. A lot of times, self reflection would prefer for a person to attack the messenger than to take responsibility and accountability for your own poor decisions. One 2019 report showed that on average days, 49% of women did housework compared to 20% of men. But it's more than just laundry and dishes. It's the invisible, never ending third shift of emotional labor that finally becomes too much to bear. What is emotional labor? It's being the keeper of schedules, the reminder of birthdays, the planner of vacations, the mediator of arguments, and the main source of comfort for everyone. You say, well, I want to hear I want to hear their view too. I challenge women to get on the show and put their opinions on. Uh, However, they don't always have the courage and confidence to do so. While in the past women have come onto the show, since I'm speaking off of facts and statistics, not my own personal observations or opinion of women, less often do women actually come in and communicate because at the end of the day, this is fact. So they can disagree based on their own personal opinion, or they can validate why they behave this way, or they can get on here and deny that they behave this way and try to make it seem like they're the outlier that doesn't fall into the statistical analysis. But there's very little room for them to come into this particular type of conversation and uh, do anything other than agree. I mean, I would prefer for them if they have a disagreement to come in and voice their disagreement. But this is how do you disagree with statistics? How do you disagree with facts? That's kind of the question. So if I point out a problem and I show you the statistical analysis as to how that problem occurs, outside of debating or discussing how to resolve the problem and prevent the problems from occurring in the future, which would be fantastic for a woman to come in and do and be able to communicate from an educated perspective, accountability towards unacceptable decisions, and then proactively navigate solutions to how to resolve this where less women are less impacted by the negative decisions. I mean, until they're willing to step up. We're just kind of looking. And you said on good relationships, I'd love for them to come and talk on good and bad relationships. He said high grade women are evil. Well, I'm not saying that women are evil. I'm saying that women have had less experience with taking responsibility for things, regardless of whether or not they're the cause of it. Men have more experience with that. And women can disagree with that and say, oh, I take responsibility all the time. But ask yourselves, in a relationship, agree that it is the man's fault, right? Women are always right, men are always wrong. So if the man disagrees with the women, the men are wrong. If that is tradition, right? Well, if that is tradition, then that means that even if the man is right, the man is wrong. Even if the woman is wrong, the woman is right. Even if it is not the man's fault, he's wrong because the outcome wasn't right. Even if it is the woman's fault, the man is wrong because the outcome wasn't satisfactory to the woman. This has been trends that we have experienced over generations. Happy wife, happy life. Why is that saying in existence that only will the relationship be remotely happy if she is the only one happy? Why is that a concept? Yeah, I can agree with that. Most women are. Well, actually, statistically speaking, there's probably less negative women out there than there are positive women, but the negative women are recirculated back into the dating pool and they negatively impact more men more often because the negative women are more frequently reintroduced to the population. The good women are taken the first time and never let go until the men die off. So probably a lot like the statistics of good cops versus bad cops, you have more good cops than you have bad cops, but you experience more negative experiences from the bad cops than you experience good experiences from the good cops. Nobody says anything when a cop comes and saves their life. But the first time that a cop pistol whips a pregnant woman on the side of the interstate, they don't stop talking about that for decades. Just saying. Weak men. It's not just about weak men. Um, you have to understand that the men are not necessarily weak because they end up in a situation where they give an unconditional surrender. A lot of times, men give an unconditional surrender. We're going to be talking about that later on in the show. A lot of times, men give unconditional surrender because they're so heavily invested in the relationship and they have more to lose in the relationship than the women do. Yes, the women lose a large percentage of the free money they were getting from their man, but the man loses half of his stuff, access to his children, his relationship is over, and his finances are now compromised because his financial obligation to pay her and pay her again for the kids becomes an additional financial burden. So while the man might lose 21% of his cohabitative income, he's still going to end up with an additional burden where usually alimony and child support takes one third of the man's income. So if he's losing 21% of financial stability and then losing one third of the other 79%, that's putting him closer to 50% of what he was before he got married. So it's not that they're weak. It's that logically and rationally speaking, it's more beneficial for the man to not divorce his wife. But a lot of the things that cause the good women in good relationships to burn out is being the default parent because the man is statistically working more often than being at home taking care of the kids, being the project manager of the home, planning things because the man is off working and making money to take care of the kids, the one carrying the mental load of thousands of tiny little details because the man is off working and making money to come back and take care of the kids. And for years, this dynamic can be masked by shared projects of parenting. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the man is contributing as much in the at home effort as the women that are at home because a man spends more time at work. Think about the CEO that puts in 60 hours a week out of what, 120 hours, 160 hours. He's putting in almost the entire week. He's at work. A lot of people that get 4 to 6 hours of sleep but spend 10 hours at work are spending 16 out of 24 hours indisposed and unable to be utilized by the family, which gives them very little time, 6 hours, 6 or 7 hours, to be with the family, to help the wife do things around the house. And for years, this dynamic can cause a lot of issues. But then the kids leave home and the empty nest begins because all of the things that mom got used to doing, mom's not able to do. And the quiet of that house, a woman often looks at her partner and has a scary realization. Without the kids as a buffer, the foundation of the relationship is gone. She, who has been the family's primary emotional manager, finds herself in a partnership where her own emotional needs have been ignored and her partner can start to feel like another person to take care of. Because once you've been, uh, yeah, you're right, all of that time is lost. And now, and a lot of women say that when they get into that divorce. I gave you 20 of my best years of my life. And I'd be looking at him like, that wasn't your best 20 years. From 16 to 36, that was your best 20 years. When you was dropping like a hot in the frat parties, that was your best. Oh, yeah, you're right. Hopefully your kids leave home because some kids these days in modern 2025 times, these kids are still in the house at 35 years old. You be sitting over here like, damn, when is you going to move out? Because now you got, I'm grown. I can do whatever I want. Well, you can go get an efficiency and live on top of your teacher's office because you ain't staying here with that bullshit. You can get out. You got to stay here. I ain't asked you to stay. Um, Studies consistently find that men are frequently blindsided by a divorce filing. And truth be told, across the board, I have always said that women are selfish and men are inconsiderate. Women do things for themselves. They have agendas for what they want to accomplish. Men do things statistically for everyone but themselves. But what they don't think about and what they don't consider doesn't get done because they are focused on doing so many other things for other people, which puts them in a position where they're missing clues, they're missing hints, they're missing observations. They thought they were doing a good job, but they were mistaken because they weren't focusing on the right thing. And then they get blindsided because while the wife is contemplating the divorce, she's not communicating with her husband about improvements in the marriage that should have occurred long before the children moved out. While she's talking with the lawyer and making the plans and taking money out of the joint bank account to pay for legal fees, private investigators, and all this other stuff, she's preparing something that the husband knows nothing about. He's gotten used to her cold and distant behavior and doesn't pay it any attention. He's not trying to proactively fix the relationship either. And in those situations, when she does bring him a legal document that's been drafted by a lawyer that's on his salary, he's paying for this lawyer and didn't even know it. The divorce puts him in a compromising situation because he has to decide to voluntarily agree to the divorce or have a legal action forced upon him where he has no choice but to participate in it. And this usually happens with wives that have long simmering dissatisfaction because women are the ones doing the emotional monitoring of the relationship. The empty nest doesn't cause the divorce, it just reveals what was already broken. And this is a concern that I've had with marriages for a long period of time. We've been talking about this for the past 9 months. Is that some people get married for all the wrong reasons. You get married for financial stability. You get married for the sake of the kids. You stay in a marriage that should have been dissolved a long time ago for the sake of the kids. And then the kids are not being raised in a positive environment. Because while you believe that what you're doing is in the best interest of the children, even if y'all lived in separate houses, if y'all had found a way to buy apartments where y'all lived in separate apartments next door to one another, where the kids can walk out of your door and walk right into your spouse's door, and y'all be on the other side of the wall of one another, where y'all don't have to interact with one another, but the kids have equal access to both parents, y'all would be giving a better environment for the children than you would be living in the same house, ignoring each other, mistreating each other, devaluing each other for the kids, or putting on a front of a false sense of happiness that the children understand that y'all are acting weird, but they don't know what's going on, right? But when the children leave and go to college, or the children get married and move out, or the children just move out, go get them a job and start doing it on their own, y'all stayed together for the sake of the kids, and now the kids aren't here. So there's no reason for y'all to stay together. The marriage was broken a long time ago, and no one tried to fix it. What we expect from marriage has completely changed. If you look back at our grandparents, generations and generations ago, marriage was often more practical. A successful marriage was built on stability, respectability, and defined roles. We don't have defined roles in modern times. Love and deep connection were a bonus, not a requirement. Today, we look for a soulmate through lust and financial greed, which is a misconception already. And we want a best friend without starting off the relationship in a friendship. And we want a passionate lover that starts from the one night stand after the club, and intellectual equals, even though we're not finding them in an equal in an intellectual scenario. Then we're looking for emotional confidence with the majority of our population that has been emotionally damaged from negative relationships. And we try to find all of this in one person, which is completely unrealistic. The modern ideal is that our partner should help us become the best version of ourselves instead of us prioritizing being the best version of ourselves and having our partner support our success. This is incredibly high bar stakes. And this is fueling many divorces for women over 40 because a woman might look at her long term marriage and see that it doesn't measure up. She might have a good husband by old standards. He's a good provider, a decent father, not abusive. But inside, it feels empty. There's a lack of deep emotional connections. Conversations are about logistics, not dreams, fears, or feelings, because men are logical and rational. We're not going to talk about how we feel about the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about statistically which team is likely to go, and statistically which players are likely to be the reason why the winning team won. We don't talk about our feelings of electing an official in our country. We talk about the statistical success rate of that individual and the potential for failure based on their policies. We don't talk about how we feel when we engage with our relationships. We talk about how it is logically and rationally more acceptable for us to go in a specific direction. We're like Vulcans in life. Women forget that men are raised to suppress their emotions and their feelings, not to express them. So when men make decisions and take actions, they're not taking actions and making decisions based on feelings. Now, women have evolved, but men have stayed the same. Reason being is because a man's masculinity is defined by 100-year-old traditions that will not change. If a man changes from the ideology of masculinity, a man is no longer considered masculine. And a lot of times, uh, uh, their sexuality is challenged as well. So they're not just dealing with a compromisation of their masculinity, they're dealing with a compromisation of their sexuality simply because they're not performing masculine roles as expected by society, where they get devalued by men and women in society. Studies have consistently shown that women report lower levels of relationship quality and satisfaction than married men. They feel lonely inside the marriage. That statistic exists because men don't always talk about how they feel. For women who believe that she has another 30 or 40 years of active life ahead of her, regardless of whether or not she's capable of reproducing children, the thought of spending that time in a quiet desperation is unbearable. Well, she's leaving not because the marriage is a bad marriage, but because it's not enough for her expectations. We can't have an honest conversation about women over 40 without talking about premenopause and menopause. This hormonal shift doesn't cause divorce, but the psychological clarity that often comes with it can bring existing marital problems into sharp, unavoidable focus. Many women describe it as a lifting of the fog, where their impulse to people please fades and is replaced by a powerful drive for self preservation. Things that were once mildly annoying in a partnership can become completely intolerable. The lack of support, the unfair division of labor, the absence of intimacy, these are no longer issues that she can just put up with. This period often comes with a stark confrontation with morality. The questions change from can I be happy someday to am I happy right now? She looks at the decades that she has left and asks, is this how I want to spend them with this person for the remainder of my life? Is this what I want to deal with? And this existential questioning combined with hormonal shifts creates a powerful cocktail for change. It's a time of rediscovering her own identity, separate from the role of wife and mother. If her partner isn't supportive of this evolution, the marriage can quickly feel like a cage. Research also reveals a harsh reality. A man is significantly more likely to leave a marriage if his wife gets seriously ill, while women are overwhelmingly more likely to stay and become caregivers. For a woman who has been the caregiver for decades, the realization that this care might not be returned can be a devastating final blow. While women are initiating most divorces, we have to ask ourselves, what about the men? If so many women are unhappy, why aren't more men filing for divorce? The reasons they stay are complex and point to a different set of fears and motivations. First is a deep fear of loneliness and loss of support. For many men, their wife is their primary confidant and entire social support system, specifically because women do not allow men to socialize with other people, especially other women. So a man cannot receive positive influence from an outside party because they're exclusively restricted from doing so. They often then have to depend on their wives for emotional support and to organize their social lives, which are the things that make a woman valuable in a relationship. Divorce can mean facing a level of isolation they have never experienced or have not experienced in an extremely long time, which research links to higher rates of depression and other health problems in divorced men. Second, there's a fear of financial ruin. The phrase, it's cheaper to keep her, exists for a reason. While women often suffer a greater drop in their standard of living, men still face significant financial penalties. The prospect of alimony, child support, selling the family home, and seeing their net worth cut in half is a terrifying deterrent. Um, Third is the loss of identity and family structure. For many men, the role of husband and father is core to their self perception. Divorce can feel like a public failure and a loss of status because, for some reason, women feel it more comfortable to teach the children to identify another man as dad, which makes absolutely no sense. The child's biological father should be the only man that is identified as dad to the kids, no matter how the woman feels about the children or the children's father. The same way that the biological mother should be the only person identified as the child's mom, not, oh, stepmom and this, that, and the third. You got one mom and one dad, and you got mom's husband and dad's wife. That's it. But we're in a different era. Now children can have 100 moms and 40 dads because the parents can't get their shit together. Even when adult children, the fear of being pushed to the uh, the side in the family is a very paramount situation. And losing the daily connection and a central role in holidays and milestones is a powerful anchor for men, makes them stay. And finally, there's a simple inertia and a difference in perception. Men constantly report higher levels of marital satisfaction than their wives because they have no choice. And what a woman experiences as an empty marriage, a man may see as a comfortable, stable, good enough arrangement. Where I told you guys before that having a relationship or a marriage that is good enough is not good enough for both of you. And this is why so many men are blindsided. Good enough means that we ain't arguing, but we ain't happy. We don't have conflict, but we don't have satisfaction. We don't have financial chaos, but we don't have enough finances. Good enough. We don't fix what's not completely broken, even if it is not optimized for efficiency. They have mistaken their own comfort for mutual contentment, completely missing the signs of their wife's profound unhappiness. Women have experienced this too. Just because she thinks that everything is good, she believes that both parties feel the same way. We've talked to women plenty of times on the show where they believe that the male best friend that they have only wants to be friends. And I've tried to make her understand that is the furthest thing from the truth because unless she is extremely ugly, men do not befriend women that they would not want to have an intimate relationship with. Men will tolerate an intimate relationship with a woman specifically because that's as close as she will allow him to get. But if the man had the opportunity, doesn't care what her sexual preference is, she can like girls and he could still be her man at the same time. She could have a man and he could be the man on the side at the same time. She could be a mother of a dozen kids and she could be his woman at the same time. There are very few reasons why she can't have him too from his perspective. So a man that is just a friend is only just a friend because that is the barrier that she set, not the one that he set. And a lot of women who is in disbelief of this concept challenge the scenario. Contact your male best friend and offer him a genuine reality romantic relationship. First off, he's going to think you're joking because you've never given him that opportunity before. But if you guarantee him that you are serious about that, he will take you up on that offer because that's what he's been waiting on this whole time. And if you don't believe me, put it to the test. Put me in a picture on the side, open up your text message right now, and text your male best friend and offer him a romantic relationship. Offer him a serious, like he's gonna be your boyfriend kind of thing. Y'all are gonna, do all the stuff that couples do, and see what his response is. I can guarantee you that the majority of men who are not already married in another, some men might drop the woman that they're with because you're the one they want and they're trying to find a consolation. But the majority of men that are not already in a committed marriage and all these other financial obligations will take you up on that offer. Understanding what's driving this trend is one thing. And like Michael was asking, knowing how and what to do about it is another thing. Whether you're a woman thinking about decisions like this or a couple wanting to avoid becoming a statistic, there are proactive steps that you can take to keep this from happening. Now, the key is to stop coasting and start actively engaging in your relationship. For couples who want to strengthen their marriage, to have a better relationship, the work must begin long before the nest is empty. It starts with a real commitment to open communication. This means making time to talk about feelings, fears, and dreams, not just logistics. Expressing appreciation and affection is the lifeblood of a long term relationship. So while women can explore the field of dreams, recognizing when your man has done something is highly important. If you recognize that a lot of the things that he do is not what you would prefer to do, and you have commented negatively about the things that he has done, you should make sure that when he has done things that you would prefer that he does, that you compliment and show appreciation for the fact that he's accomplished. You know what? Wherever there's a complaint, there should be 5 compliments to 25 compliments to follow that. If you ask a man if you look good in this outfit, and he finds all the flaws with not just the outfit, the makeup, the hair, the shoes, everything, you might burst into tears. Men are taught to lie. If a woman doesn't quite look good in that outfit, he's not supposed to tell her that she looks bad in that outfit. He's supposed to strategically find a way to make her believe that even though this outfit doesn't suit her body type or her personality, that she still looks good, at least in his eyes. While society might completely have a different opinion, telling her the truth that that outfit does not work for you, that the quantity of makeup that you have on your face does not work for your complexion, does not work for the way you should look in a comparison to your normal look when you first roll out of the shower. Women don't want to hear that. But recognizing that a man can't tell you the truth about all the reasons why this outfit looks horrible on you because justification, my friend likes it. Y'all heard that on Sunday. The fact is, you would prefer for them to tell you something positive about the decisions that you've made. That's the key takeaway from that. Women would prefer even when they make a bad choice, that a man tell them something positive about the choices that a woman makes. Equivalently, men never get a positive compliment about the decisions and actions that men make. Y'all got to think about that. Rethink about it, matter of fact. It's also vital to revisit shared activities, things that y'all have done successfully in the past, and create new rituals as a couple, things that you used to be able to do, but time has changed and y'all don't have the availability to do that anymore. Y'all need to find new rituals. When I was growing up, the family used to watch Monday Night Raw. Now that I'm grown, Monday Night Raw is not a ritual anymore. Now, in order for family to communicate with one another, we have to find another way to stay in contact. We have to find another way to engage with one another. When y'all go from just being the two of y'all to being a family, the things that y'all used to do just the two of y'all can't do because there's kids in the house. So now the things that y'all do are focused on the child. But a lot of times y'all got to get a babysitter and find a ritual to say, hey, we're gonna leave the child with the aunt, the uncle, or a straight up babysitter, and we're going to have a couples night where we're gonna go out and do stuff just the two of us. We're gonna have an adventure, an activity, a hobby. Even if we don't get a babysitter, we're gonna find something where we can let the kids sit in front of the Xbox while we go in the other room and build a Lego village or something together. That we're gonna do something together as a couple in order to strengthen our bonds with each other. Because if you only focus on the child that you have, or the children, if you have multiple children, you're abandoning yourselves and each other in a relationship where the marriage is strained because there's no focus on the adults in the marriage. The focus is only on the children for the sake of the children. It's not just the children in the family that need to be prioritized. The parents need to be prioritized as well. The best interests of the children come from the best interests of the parents, because the parents cannot provide for the children if the parents are neglected for the child's entire life. The same way a relationship cannot survive if one person sacrifices themselves the entire life of the relationship. That burnout leads to catastrophic failure. So they have to create new rituals as a couple that are separate from the children. And don't be afraid to seek professional help, because seeing a therapist isn't a sign of failure in a marriage, it's a sign of wisdom. You don't go get a therapist so that you have an extra person outside of the relationship to be on your side in the middle of debates. You can get a therapist to help you guys navigate ways to interact and engage with each other in a positive fashion. You can get a therapist to be a third option as to what to do to bring more life to the relationship, so that the relationship isn't just bland. Vanilla is boring, but vanilla is stable. You can add a little bit of excitement into the relationship without allowing chaos to ensue. Remember to like and subscribe. For women who consider divorce, the path forward requires careful planning. First, getting financially prepared, which usually requires women to build up an escape fund, understanding all the marital assets, debts, and income, talking to a financial advisor and a divorce attorney to understand your rights and what your future could look like, which means that they are proactively preparing an exit plan long before they tell their partner that they're interested in walking out of the relationship. Next, you're building a strong support system outside of your marriage. You're reconnecting with friends from way back in the day, probably even exes. You're finding a therapist that your partner knows nothing about, and building a network of people who can support the decision you're about to make without ever putting any effort into communicating all of this discontent with your romantic partner. Finally, you're going to take time to rediscover your own identity, what brings you joy, and start investing time and energy in yourself, your health, and your own personal growth without ever taking any time to do the exact same thing for your partner. This isn't just preparing for a new life, it's preparing for a new beginning and beginning to live it. The sharp rise in divorce for women over 40 isn't really a story about failure. It is a story about empowerment and evolution and the pursuit of meaningful lives. It shows a huge shift in our society where women are no longer willing to be silent partners in marriages that don't fulfill them. While they still have a problem with putting forth a proactive effort to rectify the situation, they find themselves armed with a courageous refusal to settle, no interest to reciprocate, and they are choosing happiness selfishly, often despite facing a steeper financial penalty than their male counterparts. This trend holds a mirror up to the institution of marriage. It challenges the outdated models and calls for a new kind of partnership, one built on true equality. But we're not really going to see equality in the average relationship. We're more often than not going to observe uniformity. Uniformity is going to exist when both partners are seeing reasonable balance in their relationship, where he receives what he needs from his wife and she receives what she needs from her husband. But in order for you to receive what you need, you have to vocalize what you don't have. And a lot of times, because women are selfish, they will focus on their own needs. And the only time that they will communicate to their partner is when they're exploiting their desires, not vocalizing their needs. The men are not allowed to vocalize their needs. They're shamed against that in modern relationships. But then at the same time, if a man feels unfulfilled and abandoned in his relationship, the man typically looks for that fulfillment outside of his marriage. And that's going to lead to infidelity. Instead of the woman finding that fulfillment or recognizing that the husband is unfulfilled and putting forth the effort to aid in that fulfillment, they simply just abandon ship. You can't tell me that you're mad that your car ran out of gas on the freeway, but you passed 12 gas stations since you left the house. If you don't try to fix the problem will eventually become unavoidable. That's right. No love. No love will exist. The lack of the feeling of being loved will start. The lack of vocalizing that will reinforce it. The absence of the feeling of being loved leads to the feeling of loneliness, which leads to depression and desperation, which leads to excessive alcoholism and unnecessary drug use, which leads to the failure in the marriage because they're either going to bail out of the relationship because they're unhappy or they're going to cheat to find the happiness somewhere else where the cheating might lead to the failure of the marriage. But the lack of action and a lack of expression is what really destroys the relationship. Silent lives of desperation. That is right. That is exactly right. We are finding ourselves recognizing that we do not have that old fashioned model of a relationship that is built on true equality, deep emotional connection, and mutual growth. And this signals that for marriage to thrive in the 21st century, it has to be a place where both parties can flourish, not just the wife and not just the husband. For millions of women who have walked this path, divorce isn't an end. It is a bold and often scary, but ultimately hopeful new beginning, a second or sometimes third or sometimes eighth act. Because a lot of times we get married more than one time, not recognizing What was the common failure in both marriages? Because it wasn't your partner. If you've been divorced twice, and this is going to be written on the terms of the divorcee. Michael says it's easier to get a dog off to play chess. That's good. But ask yourself, Michael, if it's easier to get a dog, why is it easier to get a dog? Because I've observed that it's easier to get a dog because a dog will give you unconditional love. A dog will give you unconditional affection. A dog will give you unconditional recognition and reassurance. A dog never wants to leave your side. A dog is always looking forward to you coming back. A dog will always be there. But why do you not find a partner that carries those characteristics? A dog is always offering more affection than you can withstand. Most people with an affectionate dog find themselves pushing their dog off of them because they don't want that much affection. And yet the dog comes back to offer even more affection. The dog doesn't grow distant over the years. The dog will continue to be right there in your face, looking to offer you affection whenever you allow it. Now, why are we not finding those characteristics in people? That's a very good question. And I really wanted the ladies' opinions on this. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure that you take the time to subscribe because we're going to have some more deep dives into this modern relationship situation tomorrow when we start talking about this. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. Have you seen this trend in your own lives? Is a really good question to ask yourself. And what factors do you think are most significant as we continue this conversation throughout the rest of this week? Michael says they don't talk back. They don't lay at my feet. I can't get her to do that, bro. I have a service dog, right, that operates off the leash, and it impresses so many people. And a lot of men, we've had this discussion that my dog is actually more obedient and more responsible than most people, children, and every man's wife. And we get a good laugh out of that because, truthfully, understandably, we cannot find the type of partner that'll give us unconditional treatment. We cannot get that unconditional positive praise. We cannot get that unconditional love and affection. It is conditional. She will respect us if she gets what she wants. She will appreciate us if we do what she tells us to do. Sometimes we don't get appreciated, we just don't get cussed out. As men, we cannot find a woman that behaves the way dogs behave. But women find that in men. They're just not satisfied. That's not enough. Being a provider isn't enough if you're never home. Now, the funny thing about that is that while a man being a provider of the lifestyle that the woman wants might not be enough because the man is never home to provide the emotional affection and emotional attachment, the women are not interested in aiding the man in getting a promotion or finding a higher paying job or helping him start up a business so that he could spend more time at home with his wife. Women might find a problem with a man's lack of uh, intimacy. His sex drive depreciates with lower testosterone levels as a man gets older. But women are not proactively changing a man's diet to increase his testosterone levels so that he can maintain that intimacy. The older women get, the lower their estrogen levels, higher testosterone levels. More masculine they become, the more logical they become. The older men get, the more estrogen they produce, the less testosterone they have, the more emotional they think, the less logical and rational they become. The roles shift. The drive of a woman increases at 40 and 50 years old, and the drive of a man decreases at 30 and 40 years old. So when she's in her 60s, she's going to have the same drive that he had when he was in his 20s. When she's not feeling like it at 18 to 25, he's not feeling like it at 60. Because a man doesn't get it as often as he wants to, he never says no, but that does not mean that he will be capable of performing. And because men don't carry a healthy diet to maintain high testosterone levels, the fact is that very few men can do anything other than take a little blue pill to make action happen whenever she feels like having it. But you also have to recognize that men are highly triggered by emotional influence. Even though men act reactionally to logic and reason, when it comes down to intimacy, you will trigger a higher drive from a man that feels wanted, needed, loved, and appreciated. And then you'll also see a higher drive and more passion from a man that is maintaining healthier testosterone levels. So if you want to proactively change the way your man treats you, you change the way he eats, and then you change how you treat him. You'll get better results. You do have to vocalize what's wrong in the relationship. But your complaint about what's wrong in the relationship is not about what your man is not doing. It is about what you're missing out of the relationship and what both of you can do together to bring back what was once there. Whatever made you stay, whatever made you say, I do, you need to go back and revisit that and proactively find a way for both of you to continue reenacting what made you guys come together in the first place in order for you to maintain that relationship till death do us part. Because otherwise, in modern 2025, we need to just change the wedding vows to have and to hold for better or for worse for the next 10 to 15 years and then reevaluate this marriage at that point. Because otherwise, if we don't change those vows, we will not be able to uphold our wedding vows because we will not be able to maintain a to death do us part because we're on autopilot from the I do. And a lot of times, ladies, y'all might find yourselves on autopilot from the yeah, I'll go out on the first date with you, allowing whatever effort that your partner puts into making the relationship successful, the catalyst of the life support system of your relationship. Here's another thing, ladies. Think about this. For those of you who are dating a guy, y'all been dating, in your opinion, far too long, he hasn't proposed. Ask yourself, why has he not proposed? Don't blame him. Ask yourself, why has he not proposed? Truth of the matter is, something that you're not doing, or in some situations, something that you are doing, is the reason why he has yet to propose. Think about this. If it's not that he can't afford it, he just hasn't done it. What is discouraging him from taking that leap? Don't just blame his childhood. Don't blame his mama. Don't blame his past exes and his past relationships. What's missing out of his relationship that is not compelling him to marry you? Then think about this, ladies. Think about this. For those of you who are in a relationship and you on a regular basis demand to get engaged, you're not going to cook him whatever. You're not going to get him whatever. You're not going to perform a certain way until he puts a ring on that finger. If you've ever said that to your boyfriend who refuses to be your fiance because something's missing, ask yourself, why do you have to hold hostage the positive treatment of your man to get the marriage? Ask yourself that. Because I can equally say, fellas, if she's holding the relationship hostage to get married, what she's not willing to do for you before you say I do is going to be exactly what she's not going to do for you after she says I do. You do not make a wife through the relationship. You train wife material to behave the way you need her to behave when she is a wife. So, ladies, why are you not proactively putting in the effort to earn the right to be the wife, learning what needs to be done? Because roles reverse, because I come from a universal perspective. Roles reverse, ladies. If he wants to marry you, he's going to propose to you. You're not going to say yes if he's not meeting your expectations. If you want him to ask you, you have to meet his expectations. Goes both ways. Then think about this. After you've compelled him under duress to invite this invitation of marriage, now y'all are engaged for another half a decade. Ask yourself, what is missing out of the relationship that's preventing him from scheduling the marriage? Because again, it's not just him. It's not his fear of being committed. It's not his fear of failure. There's something happening there that is prolonging his decision to move into a financial obligation that has a very significant failure. And the failure rate is high. I got to ask ladies, look, when it comes to prenuptial agreements that indicate that she is allowed to leave the relationship with nothing. If she signs this contract, we'll get married. Ladies, and I just want to know, what if a man gave you a marriage, because marriage is a contract and divorce is the division of that contract. What if a man had a contract that wasn't just a prenuptial agreement that says you get nothing, but actually says that if you are the one that initiates the divorce for anything other than recognized and observed abuse, documented abuse, that if you, for any other petty reason, decided to divorce, that you would be in breach of the marriage contract and obligated to pay exuberant quantities of money for filing the divorce, which means that you would then be drawn all the way back to that 1940s, 1930s expectation where you have to divorce from his abandonment of the marriage or his actual abuse in the marriage, where you would literally be saying, if I divorce him, I'm going to have to pay him everything. I'm going to have to reimburse him like 50% of my life's income for the rest of my life to divorce him. Would you get married? Would you get married? I think most women would say, "Oh, hell no." You're telling me that if I marry this guy today and put 10 years into the marriage, if I want to divorce him, I got to give him $250,000? Hell no, I'm not gonna divorce him. I'm gonna separate from him. Now we're living in separate houses like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett. I'm not gonna divorce him. We just not gonna be together. Now, when you think about that, then you think about how men don't file for divorce, because in filing of divorce, unless he can show that she extremely screwed this marriage up, abandoned and neglected the marriage, abused the husband, neglected her duties as a wife, unless he can show this across the board, that man is going to have to pay out of pocket. He guaranteed to do it. So, one of the main reasons why it is important for the women to put in extra effort to try to fix this relationship, he ain't leaving you. So, instead of y'all just accepting contentment, like good enough, why not, instead of going to talk to that divorce lawyer and instead of talking to your best friend that's been single in and out of bad relationships with 5 baby daddies, and none of those baby daddies are in her life right now, instead of getting advice from the woman that's been divorced 5 times and promoting, oh, do the single lady thing, why not go find out from your partner, what can we do to make this work? What can we do to make this better? Because we don't want to make it work where we're just living a life with no conflict. We want to make it work where we're both happy to still be married, where we're both excited to see each other every day, where we're both look forward to the next 10 to 20 years that we have set aside for each other. If we're not putting that type of effort into continuing past the first 5 years of marriage, we're failing ourselves and we're failing our partner in the marriage. So before you file divorce and blame the other person, whether it's a man or a woman, before you file divorce and blame the other person, ask yourself, did you really do everything you possibly could have done to make this marriage work? Did you really communicate enough in this marriage to try to make this marriage work? Did you really think of some unorthodox ways, like we're going to be talking about on Saturday, that you could do to make this marriage more satisfactory for you? Because if the answer to any of those questions is no, or, you know, I might have started, but I didn't continue it. Like I treated it like a New Year's resolution. It was something I did the first few weeks out of the year, but then after that, I kind of just went back into my old ways. If the answer to that question is, I could have done more, I still could do more because we ain't divorced yet. I just haven't found the motivation to try, then you fucking up. You're failing yourself before you recognize that you're failing your partner. You're failing yourself before you recognize that you're failing your children. Because you, first person accountability, are the first person to realize that there's a problem in this relationship. There's a problem in this family. And while you know that there's a problem, nobody else sees the problem. And you are not proactively doing anything about it. You know what that's like? That's like being on a cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic, knowing that the boat's leaking and not saying nothing, but knowing that you're nowhere near shore, knowing that we're going further and further away from shore. This boat will sink before we get back to land, but you're not going to plug the leak and you're not going to tell anybody the boat's sinking. This is like being on your job, knowing that the safe's open and knowing that there's customers behind the counter. You know they're going to walk off with that money, but you're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to say anything. This is like watching somebody stealing something from you and not saying anything about it and not doing anything about it. Then, when you are negatively impacted by not taking action, you blame the other person for the outcome. Every breakup and every divorce is the fault and responsibility of the person that initiated the breakup and filed for the divorce. Equivalently to the absence of the blindsided person's fault and failure when they didn't know that you felt like breaking up, that you felt like getting a divorce. They lack of consideration are the other part of the reason why this marriage didn't work, this relationship didn't work. So either you were the selfish one or you were the inconsiderate one. And you got to ask yourself, in every relationship that you were in, which one were you? The selfish one or the inconsiderate one? Because that's the reason why the marriage fell apart. That's the reason why you broke up with your last boyfriend. That's the reason why you broke up with your last girlfriend. That's the reason why you've had 11 relationships in the past 20 years. That's the reason why you're still single now. That's the reason why you're in the middle of a long, grueling divorce right now, because you were either the selfish one or the inconsiderate one. Now, when are you going to ask yourself, how do I stop being selfish? And how do I stop being inconsiderate? And how do I proactively work towards unifying this for a greater good for the both of us? Because this is still a joint venture. And we're only going to succeed if we work together. Like being in a canoe and both rowing on the same side of the boat. We will only go in circles if we don't work as a team. One of us has got to row on the right, The other one's got a row on the left. And then we alternate. Now, with that being said, ladies, I'm going to ask you, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Now, fellas, I told you at the top of the show, we're 65% male driven podcast from the male's perspective. We look forward to the women's input, but they haven't had the courage to do so as of yet. Either way, fellas, I give you guys this information to make you guys higher valued men. So y'all can take this information and utilize it to improve your personal lives. Monday through Wednesday, we're going to be talking about ways to improve your financial lives. Improving decisions in your personal life allows you to not make bad financial decisions that negatively impact your financial life. Improving your financial life allows you to have more resources to contribute towards your personal life. They are intertwined with one another. But ladies, this information is not gender exclusive. You ladies can take this information and create your own ability to be higher valued women and better women for your partners. But it requires you to recognize what in your life that is inside of your control that you can improve so that you are less dissatisfied with the life that you live. Step one in every 12-step program is accountability. You must recognize that there is something wrong and recognize that what is wrong needs to change. And then step two is proactively looking for a way to change before you get to applying that change. Because if you're in a relationship and you know that you're not happy in it, you know that something needs to change, but you don't know what to do, you are not going to be able to proactively make change because you don't know how to change it. But running from the relationship because you don't know how to fix it, selling a car because you don't know how to fix it, selling your house because you don't know how to fix it, is only going to leave you with nothing when you could have hired a professional to help you fix it, when you could have communicated that something needs to be fixed. So instead of allowing relationships to last a full 1 year, 5 days, or 1 year, 5 months, 6 days, which means that every other year you're in a new relationship, or once every 2 years you're in a new relationship because you give a 6 month delay between your last breakup and your next breakup, which implies that every 10 years you've had 5 relationships, which implies that from 15 to 35, you've been in 30 relationships. Ask yourself, when are you going to start doing this for the greater good of the group? When are you going to play for the long game? Because you can't tell me that you're going to hit 40 and then start being a partner. Because in your work life, you learn how to compromise when everyone in the room is getting paid to be there. In your personal life, when everything is voluntary and each person can leave at any time. For some reason, ladies, it makes no sense to me why you don't have the same drive to compromise when everyone is voluntarily there, when you have the drive to compromise when everyone's paid to be there. If you take your work attitude, the way you treat your boss at work, and bring that home, your relationship would be so much better. If you took your work mentality, the way you strive for success in your corporate company, and you bring that behavior home to strive to success with your marriage and your relationship, you would be a whole lot happier. Not just because you're satisfying your partner, but because you're cooperating, negotiating, and you're providing mutual respect. I want y'all to take that with y'all as we walk off of tonight's show. Now, tomorrow we're going to be talking about why the millennials are less likely to get into marriages after watching what we've been doing from the Gen X's and the baby boomers. And then Saturday, we're going to be talking about some of the more common ways that the marriages are falling apart. And we're going to be talking about proactive ways to put them back together. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'm going to see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.